look closely, you can see the aura around Pa's hat. That's when you know his spirit is with you. By doing this project, it was my way of connecting to my Pa's memory. My story began with a whisper from the past, carried on the wings of nostalgia. The whispers came from the worn old hats that were tucked away. At the start of my journey, one hat in particular stood out. My Pa's hat. It was not just a hat. It was a symbol of memories, a connection to a loved one who had passed away. Pa's hat had a bright and colourful band of light that I could see when I looked carefully. It was as if his spirit lingered in the old worn hat. Pa was rarely seen without his hat, a constant companion that shaded his eyes from the harsh sun and sheltered him from the rain. It was a part of him, an extension of his very being. I could feel his presence when I held the hat in my hands. It was a connection to a time when life was simpler and worries were few. I too longed to find meaning in my own life, to board on a journey that would rekindle the sense of purpose I felt when I held Pa's hat. I wanted to create something that could capture just a fraction of the beauty that his hat held, something that would bring stillness and peace to my mind. I wanted to explore the therapeutic benefits of a repetitive practice. I believed that learning a craft could positively affect my mind, offering a therapeutic escape from the chaos of my year. My search led me to the age-old craft of hat making. I felt the need to honour traditional methods that had endured for centuries. Hat making was considered a dying art, yet it had a rich history dating back to the 16th century. My heart swelled with a desire to preserve and carry forward this ancient tradition, breathing new life into it. The repetitive practice of hat making, I thought, might lead to a meditative state, much like the stillness achieved through meditation. To get to a calm state through meditation requires repetitive process, and this is similar to the process of making a hat. In meditation, the breathing in and out shifts the brain waves into relaxation. What I discovered is that in hat making, the process of steaming, blocking, and shaping is a familiar pathway to achieve this same state. I have never been able to sit down and do a meditation, so to find stillness in crafting has made me feel at peace. So I set off to make my own collection of hats. The goal was to make around 5 hats, and I knew this was going to be a highly intuitive experience, so I took it as it went. I worked in a small workshop where the hats took shape. To make my first hat, I first needed to understand the traditional practices. I learnt that a hat block is not formed into a shape like a sculptor does. Hat bodies must be pressed and shaped around a metal form that is called a hat block. Before I could place the hat onto the block, I needed to dampen it with water and press it into the fibres of the fur felt or wool using my hands. I placed the hat onto the steamer for a duration of 5 to 10 minutes, considering the fabric's density and quality. This is so the hat is malleable for the upcoming sizing phase. I positioned the hat on the hat block of the appropriate size, securing an elastic tightly around the brim, and then the steamer firmly into the hat to lock in the size. After I removed the elastic, the hat was ready for the shaping process. I gently raised the hat above the block and skillfully and artfully began to shape the hat style. I then placed a wire on the exterior of the hat around the brim, then temporarily sewed it in place. By using the steamer, I pressed it firmly into the base where the wire lay and pulled it across to the brim's edge, ensuring a smooth and flawless 90-degree angle from crown to brim. Lastly, I applied a solvent-based solution which hardens the hat to achieve its final form. While shaping my first hat, it was hard for me to make the hat symmetrical. In traditional craftsmanship, the eyes of the artist are in their hands. It took time and practice, and it was here I developed a keen eye for balance. I found inspiration in the forgotten, the neglected, and the discarded. This collection of hats was bought from those in the community that no longer had a use for them. I upcycled these hats by revitalizing them, implementing traditional hat-making methods alongside my mentor, Louise Swan. Louise is a well-renowned milliner who I have worked closely beside, and through her guidance and passed down knowledge, she has taught me everything I know today. Through our time working together, a master and apprentice relationship formed, and a new hat maker was born. After making my first hat, I started to see what I'd learnt, all my gathered knowledge visible in the hat before me. I wanted to give new life to old and forgotten hats, and saw potential in these neglected treasures waiting to be revived. I wanted to imbue them with fresh meaning, creating a sense of personality and style through the addition of bandanas. The goal was to infuse a variety of colour, texture and material into the world of old, forgotten and rundown hats. My inspiration from this sprouted from observing prominent brands such as Akubra and Brixton hats, which often lacked the exuberance I sought. These hats typically featured sewn-on bandanas, and I saw an opportunity to innovate. Thus, the idea of interchangeable bandanas was sparked. To give beauty and aesthetics to the hat's bandanas, I crafted from a motley collection of materials gathered from old cushion covers, sheets of cotton and fine linen, as well as belts and old braided leather along the way. The concept was simple yet brand new. A single hat with the option to switch between 3 or 4 different bandanas tailored to suit any occasion. To accomplish this, I sewed on snap locks, a kind of button, offering 2 to 3 size options for convenience, style and versatility. I spent hours upon hours designing, reflecting and sewing the bandanas, playing with colour, pattern and textures. Through measuring, sewing and binding pieces together, I created a harmonious ring of colour around the brim of each hat. I began to see meaning come to life in my own hats, much like the aura around Pars. However, with learning any new skill, this came with its frustrations. To harness the interchangeable bandanas, I experimented with different methods and materials to suit the design. And after many trial and errors, snap locks were my best option in terms of durability. Still, the snap locks were visible on larger hats as the smaller sized locks were exposed. So I turned to good old paper and pen, and I came up with new ideas in which I could resolve this issue and tried them all. But something about the exposed snap locks with time I came to like, and saw that by leaving it, it brought a new design element to the table. This approach breathed new life into these old hats, making them tell a new story. I struggled with the overwhelming number of choices available, fearing that focusing on aesthetics might make me appear superficial. But the fear of physical beauty led me to discover the art of letting go. I learnt that amongst all the challenges you face, there is always beauty in the journey waiting to be found. I faced the struggle with how slowly I was progressing, and with having such a well-experienced hat maker as my mentor, I felt heavily reliant and dependent on her. I felt like I had such a long way to go before I could ever dream of making my own hat. I was comparing myself to other hat makers, wondering why I wasn't as good as they were. My mentor began to see this problem consume me, as it affected my time management, resulting in how inefficient I was. I knew this needed to change in order to keep my project moving, and in ways it did, and in others it didn't. I had not mastered this one just quite yet, but a wise woman once told me, the most significant challenge you face in your youth will ultimately become your greatest source of strength in the future. So maybe it doesn't have to be a now win. Maybe that victory lies in the future. In hearing this was a real turning point for me. It felt like a breath of fresh air. A kind of peace washed over me. It was a battle with self-doubt in my craft, but I realized that embracing the beauty was not a sign of shallowness. It was about appreciating the passion poured into each piece. The unfolding nature of hat making required something deeper within me. It required me letting go of the outcome and trusting the process at each stage by not getting ahead of the practice. I had to trust myself to make the right decisions along the way that would allow the hat to take shape as it should. There was an underlying message here awaiting for me. I learned to allow life to happen for me rather than forcing things I had no control over. I saw that there is so much more beauty in the journey of it all. Embracing this truth is a profound part of the creative journey, for it liberates the artist from the weight of universal approval. I had discovered that there is an extraordinary beauty in the act of acknowledging that not everyone will see what you see in your work, and that's a part of life. It's within this acceptance that the truer law of creation unfolds. I've come to realize that the extremes of adoration and indifference are what make the applause, when it comes, all the more meaningful. Now let me take you back to a simpler time, a time when our hands drove our will to make. Crafting hats wasn't the sole purpose of my project. It was also a quest to reconnect with the very roots of my education, beginning with the magical realm of Year 1. A realm where innocence and playfulness grounds children to the simplicity of life. As the chapters of my education unfolded, I discovered a special bond between the Year 1 children with their fullness of purity and the Year 12 adult standing at the opposite end of school life spectrum. Despite the distance in years, our connection was based on a shared sense of being Waldorf students and learning through the process of head, heart, and hands. Year 12, with its complexities and challenges, beckoned for a return to the simplicity found in the early days. It was a call to immerse ourselves once again in the beauty of young minds. And so our two classes came together in the form of workshops where we made little felted gnome hats. I saw the moment where the group truly bonded and enjoyed the craft of hat making. In the midst of the senior year chaos, the workshops became a sanctuary. Gazing upon the eager faces crafting their gnome hats, I witnessed a timeless moment where innocence and maturity entwined. The magic of Year 1 resurfaced, casting its spell, bringing us all back to the earthiness of life's uncomplicated joys. Through the shared endeavor of crafting, our classes found unity. The gnome hats born from wool and creativity became symbols of a shared journey. In the delicate threads of felt, I saw the weaving of bonds that transcended the years, as each stitch mirrored the connection between the first and final chapters of our Waldorf tale. During my process of breathing new life into the forgotten hats, I explored the threefold approach of head, heart, and hands, the teaching of the whole being. It was this philosophy I had imbibed from my education at Waldorf. The head represented thinking, the heart symbolized feeling, and the hands embodied the realm of willing. I wanted to better understand the philosophy I was immersed in my whole schooling life. I intended to use the head, heart, and hands principles as a way of learning the new skill of hat making and uncover the benefits of truly engaging my whole being. Rudolf Steiner placed a strong emphasis on the importance of maintaining harmony between the flow of thinking, feeling, and willing, and how each of these correlates with the phases of growth. The early years look at the hands. The focus here is the use of intuition, rhythm, incarnating in the body, and building of will forces. There is a strong emphasis on goodness. The primary years is the heart phase, and it uses morals, feelings, imagination, and an emphasis on beauty. The secondary years is focused on the thinking, and it develops study, logical thinking, complex decision-making, and thoughts guide life. There is an emphasis on truth. Firstly, my hands took the lead. guided by intuition with a deep connection to the practice. It was a tactile experience, a process of trial and error, where I learned to master the techniques of hat making. The rhythm of these hand movements slowly brought me into a sense of calmness, allowing me to become more focused on the art of making. As I became proficient, my heart took over. The craft began to fill my heart with a sense of beauty, creativity, and imagination. It was a shift from the physical act of making to the emotional connection to the hat's appearance. With feeling such a strong connection to my pa, I felt drawn to honor him in the makings of my hats. The final phase brought me to the realm of the head. The thinking process enabled me to rationalize and understand the intricacies of hat making at a deeper level. The will to create, the connection to the heart, and the intellect of the head all worked together to deepen my learning experience. It was the harmonious integration of these three elements that brought me a true sense of knowing. My year was not merely about crafting hats. It was a journey where I found stillness in a repetitive practice, a rediscovery of tradition, and the beauty of letting go and surrendering myself to the craft of making. Throughout my entire project, I had been sidestepping discussions about beauty because I feared being seen as superficial or shallow. Slowly, a profound realization settled in that I wasn't indulging in shallowness, but rather I was honoring the boundless passion for aesthetics. It was a revelation that allowed me to appreciate the beauty in my work without judgment or fear of appearing empty. This newfound perspective opened a gateway for me to fully embrace the artistry inherent in the crafting process. As I surrendered to this acceptance, I discovered a beautiful sanctuary in hat making. With each stitch and weave, a sense of relaxation and calmness came through me. The therapeutic power of learning this skill became apparent as hat making transformed into my meditation. Discipline and stillness found their place, teaching me patience not just in the craft, but within myself. Over the span of the year, I immersed myself in the fascinating world of hat making, creating my very own collection. Using the rich texture of rabbit fur felt and the comforting warmth of carefully chosen wool, I made a total of 11 hats, 10 fedora and 1 boater style with 12 colourful interchangeable bandanas. Each hat a canvas for its own story of distinct personality and style. In the symphony of textures, colours and materials, my collection became a visual journey, a union of skill and imagination. These hats, born from rabbit fur felt and wool, transcend the ordinary, carrying with them not only beauty, but honour to my pa's hat. In the quiet corner of that old workshop, where the soft hum of creativity met the whispers of the past, I had discovered a path to inner peace and a deep connection to my own head, heart, and hands. My journey was a mission for meaning, a discovery of therapeutic power, and a deep connection back to the memory of my old pa. It was a story of challenges of repetitive practice, but most of all, it was a story where I breathed new life into the forgotten, the neglected, and the discarded hats. This project has reminded me of the power of creativity and the beauty that can be found in the most unexpected of places. As I breathed new life into these old hats, it became a metaphor for recreating, reconnecting, and rediscovery, allowing me to also breathe new life into myself. If you look close enough at any form of creating, you too might find that aura of light that leads you down a path, finding your own form of meditation. Thank you. Any questions?
Congratulations, Layla. That was such a beautiful experience of beauty.
Thank you.
Every experience in life gives us something, a gift. I wonder what hat making gave you.
I think that along with a new passion and a hobby, I think that it brought me a lot of fun, and it was a drive and a creative outlet to do throughout the year. Yeah, I just found a lot of happiness in it, in making and all the colours and the patterns, and especially the bandanas. I found that really interesting to explore colour in that way.
Thank you, Layla. You spoke beautifully. Very proud. I'm just wondering, will you be making bandanas, in the future? Because obviously you've already got all these hats, whether you sell some, keep some. Do you think you'll be making some more creations for all your different places that you want to go to?
Yeah, I would love to. I think I haven't seen anything personally on the market like my hats, so I think it would be a fun project to do. Obviously, at some point I need to get rid of them all because I don't need all of them. You only need one hat. So I'd like to start a little online thing and maybe get rid of a few of them. And yeah, I'd love to keep making them because there's so many fabrics that I didn't get that I wanted to get, but I needed to cut down and only pick a few. So I think it really also suits the environment. All the colours of being outside, and it's just really pretty.
Well done, very creative. Probably a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like asking about your children. Do you have a favourite hat?
Oh, I really like the green one. It's the first one that I made that was on the screen. That was the only wool hat that I did, besides the felted hats from the workshops. Yeah, it was really smooth to work with. I think I prefer working with the wool. And I like it because the brim is shorter. It's not quite in your face. And yeah, I think that would be my favourite. Yes.
I'll ask one while Saxon's going over. Layla, you had so many good ideas for your project, and it could have been a very different one today. But I'm also remembering in term one, we had a conversation, you wondered about changing. You'd reached a bit of a point. And now here we are at the end of the year. What do you think you've gained through staying with this project? How did you reconnect with it, Yeah.
I probably knew that doing this project over free diving in winter was probably just going to bring a lot more comfort and peace of mind. I think doing something practical was going to keep me engaged and inspired throughout the year. And I didn't want to do anything sort of fashion-wise, so finding fashion in hats was a smaller approach and a more doable way to explore that, I guess. And yeah, I think I've just found a lot more fulfillment in making something and being able to hold it and wear it and give to others, and yeah, a lot more fulfillment, I think I found.
Congratulations. That was a wonderful talk. I guess my question is about succession planning. Which class was it that you worked with?
Year one.
Year one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether you made sure that some of the teachers actually know how to do what you did with those children, because it's a wonderful thing for them to do. it's obviously something they enjoy. It's beautiful, seeing wool, different colours of wool that's been dyed, merged together and, you know, come to fruition as an actual product. And obviously the process was very beautiful. So I'm just hoping that that continues in the lower school with their craft work. I think it's a wonderful thing that
Yeah.
you've done there
Thank you.
and introduced.
Yes.
So I hope it continues.
Yes. Well, I weighed up for a long time doing kindy or year one, but I think I made the right decision with year one.
I think you did.
But yeah, we came in with everyone doing it for the first time. So it was a little bit crazy, but it was definitely fun to work with them. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well done, Layla.
Oh, thank you.
Well done. Spoke
Thanks.
beautifully. You spoke a little bit at the start about, or you throughout your talk about exploring the therapeutic benefits of crafting. I wondered what advice you had for the audience of how we could take that into our lives.
About a craft?
About crafting being therapeutic, like how would we use it as therapy for ourselves?
Well, any creative outlet is good because it, you know, takes your mind away from work or school, and the busyness of the year and everything. And it's good to keep that part of your brain working. And yeah, I think there's just a lot of happiness in crafting and what you can make, and it puts you to the test a bit. And I think in any craft there's a lot of stillness, and you got to pick something you like, otherwise you'll just get bored. Yeah.
Great talk, Layla.
Thanks.
Just what advice would you give to someone who is also looking for that sort of stillness, but in a sort of creative respect, finds it really challenging when, you know, I get really, I'm really hard on myself when creating something because it doesn't look good and obviously you were talking about you had a sort of similar challenge in finding that beauty. What advice would you have to not be so hard on yourself?
I struggle with that a lot as well, and because there were so many options for one thing, I just thought, well, go with one thing, and then for the next you can try something else. You know, you can just always keep making, so you can't get so stuck up on what that's going to look like, because I think by the end of it, you'll like it anyway, because there's so many things you can make that they can't all be the same. I do like everything to be, you know, neat and blah, blah, blah. So I think being a bit messy with things and exploring more patterns and colours and different styles and design is the way to break out of that. Just letting go and making more. So you can't get so focused on the one thing. Yeah. That all?
Hi. I noticed in your thesis there was the setup of the hats and the photography of them. Did you do that or did you outsource it? Because that's quite a skill.
Yeah, I did take the photos with Louise. We just had like a little setup with a sheet, some lights, and just took it on a phone. They're pretty good.
They look really good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, to start, I'd like to thank Ella and Rose for yet again holding the Year 12 projects together. Your work is very appreciated, so thank you. And then again to Rose for being my supervisor. You're always there for me, checking in to see how I was traveling, with a tissue here and there when I needed. I'd like to thank Aaron, our guardian, for guiding us through this year. Thank you for supporting us. And a special thank you to Kathy Your support and humour is quite lovely to be around. I'd like to say thank you to the class for being with me through this very long journey of 14 years. We have shared many good times together, and you've been the ones who have supported and helped me navigate teaching a class where we made felt hats. Just being here with me every day was more than enough to make me smile, so thank you. I'd like to thank Emily and her beautiful class of year ones for giving it their all in a task with many layers. It was so lovely spending time with you all whilst we made the hats. I'd like to thank Cara Jane for supporting and guiding me through this year. The many late nights spent with you was a real treasure to me. Thank you. I'd like to thank my mentor Louise. Your guidance every step of the way is the very reason I have been able to make my own collection of hats. Your generosity taking me in and teaching me everything about hat making has been so special to me. Thank you. Lastly, but most importantly to me, my profound thanks to my family, Mum, Dad and India, for your unwavering support and encouragement this year. Your love has been the foundation upon which my achievements stand, and I am truly grateful. It is always so fun to be around you, and when I was feeling stressed, you were the ones I turned to. Mum, you always make me laugh. Your nurture and love has guided me through this year. Dad, you were the brains. You have given me help that I needed help sewing bandanas. Sometimes it was even curling my hair at the last minute. At times it was like having two mums. To India for being my second opinion. I value you and your keen eye for design. You have been the girl I turn to time and time again for advice for my hats, so thank you. That's all. Oh, come off now.